A 33-day nationwide shopping festival is underway, looking to loosen the purse strings of foreign tourists and consumers at home. But how can Korea get more bang for the buck? Seoul continues to step up pressure against Pyongyang as the communist state nears the 10-year mark since carrying out its first nuclear test. What more to expect from the North? All this right ahead. Welcome to News Inside. I'm An Jang-han. Let's meet our panelists. Professor Shin Sang-hyuk from Kyung University Graduate School of International Studies is back with us, as is Dr. Pong Young-sik from Yonsei University Institute for North Korean Studies. Welcome back. People in China started the month of October with a 7-day National Day holiday. Korean retailers are hoping to benefit from a Chinese tourist rush, coinciding with a month-long shopping festival dubbed the Korea Sale Festa. During the event, retailers nationwide will offer steep discounts, and hopes are high for a sharp boost in sales.
Korean retailers have rolled up their sleeves, ready to greet customers during the country's largest shopping event to date, with some 250 companies taking part.
소비 투자 심리 개선이 지연되고 민간 부분의 활력이 여전히 미약한 상황인 만큼 이번 코리아 세일 페스타가 위축된 소비 심리를 활성화시키는 계기를 마련해 줬으면 하는 바람입니다.
Clothes, cosmetics, home appliances, and other goods are offered at prices with discounts ranging anywhere between 20 to 80%, and impressive prizes are also up for grabs.
3만 원 정도 되는 상품을 만 원에 준다는 거 보자마자 그냥 바로 구입을 했거든요. 그래서 뭔지도 모르는데 되게 싸게 산 느낌이고.
Car makers have also joined the event. Hyundai Motor managed to sell all of its cars up for a special sale within 9 days. Ssangyong Motor and Renault Samsung are offering steep discounts as well. In addition to major retailers, some 400 traditional markets across the nation are also taking part, adding to the festivities nationwide. With China's National Day holiday coinciding with the event, the reception from Chinese tourists visiting Korea has also been good.
我是在网上看到这个有那个新世界有那个韩国购物观光节，然后我才到这里来的，然后觉得这里的东西比较便宜，然后购物起来也比较方便。
During the 7-day holiday last year, over 200,000 Chinese tourists landed in Korea, but estimates put figures as high as 240,000 this year and $545 million in spending. That's why retailers are pulling out all the stops to attract Chinese customers. K-pop concerts and events like the Busan International Film Festival are also expected to lure in more tourists from abroad.
이런 세일 페스타가 일어난다는 것이 굉장히 좋은 관광 자원을 활용하고 우리 산업계와 또 관광업계와 또 우리 국민 전체에 대해서 정말 좋은 플랫폼을 만드는 계기가 되었다고 생각합니다.
The hopes are Korea Sale Festa during its 33-day run will drive up demand not only from foreign visitors but also from consumers at home.
There had been a lot of concerns that tensions from Seoul's THAAD deployment might put a damper on tourism from China, but so far it seems that hasn't been the case.
There was a concern, but that's a good news for Korean tourism, that the political issues between the country do not seem to interfere the Chinese tourists coming to Korea this season. According to Korea Tourism Organization, KTO, this year, 2016, we are expecting about 240,000 Chinese tourists coming to visit Korea during this holiday season for 7 days, which is 40,000 more tourists compared to the same season last year. Mm-hmm. So there's a separation between politics and tourism. And we have a different kind of Chinese tourists called Sanke, who are younger, in their 20s and 30s, and their priority goals of tourism to South Korea are shopping, but also looking for good local restaurants and getting plastic surgery. So they are more conscious of low-cost visit to South Korea, and they find it more difficult compared to older Chinese tourists coming to Korea to change plans or cancel their reservations because it takes a longer period of time to get the surgery and recover and making visits to the targeted places.
It could simply be that younger Chinese tourists just don't care about politics.
That too, they are more indifferent to political and security issues. So combining all these issues, that we are expecting a good number of Chinese tourists making visits to South Korea during these holidays.
Professor Shin, what do you think makes Korea a competitive tourist destination for the Chinese?
Yes, as a Chinese tourist destination, as you know well, the several countries are emerging, such as Japan, Taiwan, Thailand, of course, Korea. Well, Korea has comparative advantages in several things, such as the relatively cheaper price, but the better quality programs, and the very simplified visa issuing procedures, particularly for Jeju Island. I mean, Chinese tourists can enter into Jeju without visas.
Right.
And the also very convenient transportation. I mean, actually, the flight time from the Peking, from major Chinese cities to Seoul, it is quite short, isn't it? So such a kind of the factors must be the comparative advantages for Korean tourist industries to attract Chinese tourists.
Yes, as Professor Shin mentioned, Korea isn't the only country that is currently going out of its way to attract Chinese tourists, right?
Right. China is a huge country with a population over 1.3 billion. So it is only natural and rational for every country to take some part of its tourists, which it seems like, according to one statistics, and for this holiday seasons, the National Foundation holiday season, almost 6 million Chinese are expected to travel overseas, and they're expected to spend 7 trillion Korean wons, which is about 6 billion US dollars. So it is only natural of the neighboring countries to try to attract more Chinese tourists because they spend the average $120. And interestingly, the Chinese tourists spend almost double that in South Korea. But different countries have different strategies. For instance, Japan tried to attract Chinese tourists as a way of dampen the increased tension between the countries because of their territorial disputes over Senkaku Daiotai in Chinese. And the Abe administration wants to pave the way to make the 2020 Summer Olympic Games in Tokyo a success. So it is very important for the Japanese government to make a good impression of Japan to Chinese. So they create the extended visa status for some select Chinese tourists, extending the period from 3 years to 5 years, and change the tax-free limit.
Well, some say Korea needs to explore different options as well because as it is, we're too heavily dependent on Chinese tourists.
Right, definitely. Compared to Japan, which depends on Chinese tourists in far lower percentage. 25% of all the foreign visitors to Japan are Chinese compared to 49% in 2016 for South Korea. And it has been steadily increasing. In 2011, 23% of all the foreigners visiting South Korea were Chinese. But last year, it climbed to 45%, and as of August this year, it reaches 49%.
That's 1 out of 2.
1 out of 2. So what's the problem with inviting more Chinese to South Korea? That's a positive development. But flip side is too much dependent upon one single country as a source of revenue and the other benefits of growing tourism. Because there is a negative trend in South Korea bringing foreigners. the peak year was 2014 with 14.2 million foreigners visited South Korea. But after 2014, the overall number of foreigners coming to Korea for tourism has been on decline. So more heavier dependence upon Chinese tourists, but overall number of foreigners making a visit to Korea actually declined. So there must be something to address the right balance between attracting Chinese tourists, more and more Chinese tourists coming to Korea, and increasing the number of overall foreigners coming to South Korea as well.
Well, let's talk about Korea Sale Festa. You might have seen posters up on the streets near major shopping districts. Last year, if you remember, there were similar events like Korea Grand Sale and Korea Black Friday. I guess the Sale Festa essentially combined the two. How is this year's event different?
Quite different. Well, first of all, for the event last year, the total number of the participating the companies, they were only retailers, and the total number of the companies participating in the event was only 92. But this year, well, manufacturers and retailers, both of them are participating in this, Grand Sales Festival, and total number of the companies reached to 265. So there must be big increase in the number of the participating the companies, particularly manufacturers, big manufacturers such as Samsung Electronics, even Hyundai Auto Company participate in this event, and the other cosmetic companies. So in terms of the quality of the events, there must be huge improvement. And at the same time, secondly, the organizing committee tried to increase the number of products which are subject to huge discounts. They encourage the participating manufacturers to offer up to 50% discounts. And then in case of the companies which are planned to offer only 15%, as they did in the last year, they encourage them to increase the discount rate up to 30%. So there must be the huge increase in the discount rates. And lastly, last year, most of the items, were quite old ones, not brand new products. But this year, the manufacturers offer brand new products. So definitely, I think in terms of quality of the events, there must be big differences. If I give you one data, which is quite important, comparing with this year, last year one was not very successful one, but in fact, it contributed to the Korean economy in some sense. According to the analysis made, one of the government think tank after the Grand Sales Festival last year, the fourth quarter last year, the consumptions increased about 0.2%, and then the GDP increased 0.1%. At the same time, total number of the foreign visitors, tourists visiting Korea, increased by 8.5%. So, as I explained before, if considering the quality of this event improved a lot comparing with last year, definitely economic effects which you can get from this event could be much bigger than the last year.
Well, these events are being led by the government, and some have pointed out that there may be fundamental problems with that approach.
Right. I guess you already provide the answer to the question that if this grand sale, something that is to emulate the Black Friday sale season in the United States, then will the government intervention or leadership of a government should be the primary source of this movement? That is something that should be reconsidered because in fulfillment of the vision of creative economy by the Park Geun-hye administration, then there should be less government intervention providing incentives to the business, but more bottom-up volition and initiatives by business sectors itself. And you are comparing your vision to the Black Friday in the United States, which is good. You have to aim high to achieve more. But during the Black Holiday, shopping season, I can say a few words because I used to enjoy those window of opportunities while living in the United States many years. It accounts for about 20% of the annual consumption of entire households, and at least 70% of the annual revenue of small retailers. So your goal is really high. So although there are positive trends that the better manufacturer and retailer cooperation and coordination this year and other incentives introduced this year compared to last year, but in order for this to be rooted in the Korean society as a culture or something that everyone should expect for huge discount, not the nominal discount, but a huge discount with a guaranteed quality and a wide range of satisfactory selections of items, then we have to give more time to grow.
Yeah. Well, in order for that to happen, don't we need to encourage manufacturers and distributors to take the lead?
Yes, it is. I mean, for the Korean Grand Sales Festival, the government take the initiatives in supporting, organizing this event. This is different from the Chinese situation. Well, when you talk about grand sales, we normally think about three grand sales, including ours. The first one is Black Friday grand sales in the United States, and then Gwanggunje in China.
The Singles Day.
Singles
event.
Day, yes. In case of Chinese event, the private sector take initiatives. They prepare everything, and the government just supporting for those kind of efforts. So in case of China, one of the internet the sales company, Alibaba, they organize everything, and then particularly owing to their new strategies, new technologies, I think they have achieved very huge sales increases, dramatic increases. That is that they have their own payment system on internet, and second one is that they are using social network services. Through the social network services, they can increase their sales volume. They sell their products on the online services. But how about ours? Well, ours are, most of transactions are made on offline.
Yeah.
So this is one thing we have to learn from the Chinese experiences. And from the Friday in the United States. As you know very well, Black Friday means the Friday just after the Thanksgiving Day, which is the the Thursday in November. And then what is the season? What is the season? That is just before Christmas season. So in case of the Friday grand sales, there must be strong motives for the consumers to buy, than ours. So we have to think about develop those kind of things, because that in October, yes, good season for travel, good season for shopping, but not better season than the Christmas
strong
season.
Or specific incentives.
So I think the Korean government or companies should have to develop such a kind of some marketing strategies. This is another lesson we can learn from the American experience.
Once again, maybe we were relying on the Chinese tourists to come
too much
in making October the period for Korea Sales Festa.
But there should be a more coordinating role by the government if there be an intervention by the government. For instance, based upon what I read from newspaper article carrying the interview with a manufacturer participating in this October festival, then he lamented because there was not enough time to make solid coordination between manufacturers and retailers, which could have lowered the sales price during the festival season under 50%. So the government should plan ahead in order to give more time for coordinating amongst all the participating companies. And as Professor Shin mentioned, then there should be something that should be easily expected by both manufacturers, retailers, and consumers. Like after Thanksgiving, the Friday will be the Black Friday, and it is very clear what you can expect, right? Where to go, what to buy, for what reason. Christmas is coming. That kind of big picture and the better coordination are sorely needed in Korean case.
Well, so in order for Korea to boost its global presence in major retail events, what needs to be done?
Well, we have discussed so far, I think we have to get rid of the bad things, such as the overcharging the tourists. And also we have to improve the circumstances to improve the maturity of the shopping environments or as a tourist the destination, such as that very recently Korean government simplified the procedure to refund the value-added tax to the foreign buyers. I think this is one of the good examples. Definitely Korean government should continue to develop, improve those kind of the system, the institutions. At the same time, definitely the Korean government should have to make every effort to change the people's mind or people's thinking about the tourism, tourist industry, because I think this can be one of the blue oceans in the future, definitely. So those kind of efforts should be needed, I think.
Now let's move on to our next story. The IAEA unanimously adopted a resolution condemning North Korea's nuclear development program in the strongest terms ever on September 30th. This Sunday, October 9th, meanwhile, marks the 10th year since Pyongyang carried out its first nuclear test. We look at the efforts made so far to clamp down on military threats from the north.
Following 2 nuclear tests and continuous missile launches from Pyongyang, Seoul has taken one of its strongest stances against North Korea.
그럼에도 북한이 도발할 경우에는 신속하고 강력하게 응징하여 도발의 대가가 무엇인지 분명하게 깨닫도록 해야 할 것입니다. 북한 주민 여러분들이 희망과 삶을 찾도록 길을 열어 놓을 것입니다.
Seoul's Foreign Minister Yoon Byung-se raised question with North Korea's right to be a member state of the United Nations at the recently held UN General Assembly. Pyongyang is facing increasing isolation from the rest of the international community. The UN nuclear watchdog, the IAEA, also adopted a resolution in the strongest terms ever, calling on the North to abandon all of its nuclear-related programs. It was jointly proposed by 7 more countries and unanimously approved by 168 states. Washington is also turning up the heat on North Korea. It has sanctioned Chinese companies accused of aiding Pyongyang's weapons program and called on countries to sever ties with the North. In Congress, a House bill has also been introduced to cut off the regime's access to the international banking system. All of this is seen as using all means available against the North.
국제사회에서 정상적으로 활동할 수 없는 그런 환경을 조성해야만 북한이 이것을 깨닫고 전략적 셈법을 바꿀 수가 있기 때문에 한국과 미국은 국제사회와 더불어서 북한을 변화시킬 수 있도록 여러 가지 외교적 또 제반 수단과 전략을 활용해서 압박을 해나간다는 그런 방식입니다.
Diplomatic efforts made by Seoul and Washington are encouraging countries once close to the North to seek changes in relations. While the UN Security Council is discussing stronger sanctions against the North, Pyongyang's relentless pursuit of nuclear weapons only amplifies the need for new effective mechanisms.
Looks like the global community is really turning up the heat on North Korea. On Armed Forces Day here, we saw President Park Geun-hye urge North Korean residents to defect to the south, and then there was that strong warning from IAEA.
Right. The message is clear. The resolution at IAEA was not only passed unanimously, but the number of member countries that proposed the resolution increased by 7 countries. And President Park sent a message that is intended to make separation between the abhorrent leadership in North Korea and innocent North Korean people. But there should be some more carefully orchestrated policies to be made by South Korean government in order to be successful in this endeavor. Because now we are living in the era, the number of North Korean defectors reached almost 30,000. According to the statistics provided by the Ministry of Unification, we have 29,680 defectors living in South Korea. But it is questionable whether we are providing realistically best financial and the long-term educational and humanitarian support for the defectors of many different backgrounds and ages. Otherwise, then defection of and by itself is an extremely risky business to decide upon by any ordinary North Korean. So it is very important for South Korean government to make it clear to North Korean residents that it is worth risking their well-beings and the lives of the entire families to go over to South Korea, as a message by President Park intends to deliver.
Well, it's doubtful that North Korea cares about what the world says. But a recent bill in the U.S. is pushing to cut off Pyongyang from the international banking system. Do you think that might make a difference?
Yes, I mean, very recently, the U.S. Treasury decided to chop off Pyongyang's access to the international financial system, named the SWIFT system. This system is a global network that thousands of financial companies use to authorize payments from one account to another. Most of the countries, use USA dollar or other key international currencies as a way of payment. So if North Korea used USA dollar as a way of payments as well, definitely this decision can be a fatal blow against the North Korean economy. But when you look at the details of the North Korean trade, well, first of all, they want to use the Chinese yuan, not US dollars. And China, they have the 90% trade with China. So first of all, as I said before, they want to use the Chinese yuan as a way of payments. Secondly, the trade between the North Korea and China have been made on the individual level, and then in the form of smuggling. So in fact, the stance of Chinese government seems to be very, very important. They will determine the effects of these measures in the future. If they cooperate with the USA and other Western countries, definitely this decision made by the US Treasury could be a fatal blow against North Korean economy. But if Chinese government does not cooperate with the USA, maybe there must be some limits in giving some negative impacts on Chinese economy.
So once again, the key would be China.
Professor Shin's analysis, highlights very interesting, some even enigmatic aspects of China's response to the U.S. action by FBI and the Treasury Department. Chinese government, upon reporting by the U.S. government about hunting down the Hongxiang group, it took its own measures to punish and prosecute the group. I think that shouldn't be seen as a Chinese government made up its mind to accept the secondary boycott levied by U.S. government. It still tried to keep the right balance between participating in the international sanctions on North Korea after its fifth nuclear test, while blocking the secondary boycott, the stronger economic sanctions by U.S. and other countries. So Chinese government just wants to take it the matter in its own hands and just send a message to the United States and other countries that no stronger sanction is necessary because we are cooperating with you. So it's just setting one example in order to deter stronger and additional sanctions to be made.
But how sincere do you think China is about this investigation into Dandong Hongxiang?
But we have to wait and see until the actual outcomes will be publicly made available. It might be just Chinese government just take one case and dangling it as a strong evidence that China has been doing all its best.
To make matters worse, for us, well, very recently, the Chinese diplomats even empathized the traditional relations between two countries.
With North Korea.
With North Korea, yes. So I think this is the quite significant for us to understand or analyze the Chinese stance dealing with this issue. Because as Dr. Bong very well analyzed, definitely we have to wait and see, but the Chinese stance is not very clear. They just playing double, they do a double plays actually in dealing with North Korean crisis.
So what do you think has triggered this thaw in relations between China and North Korea? Was it fad once again?
Right, but at the same time, we have to give us more time to see whether this is really thaw or just temporary strategic, change of attitude on both parts. The concrete evidence should be made if and when there will be a visit by the top leader of either of China or of North Korea to the other country, whether Xi Jinping making a visit to North Korea or Kim Jong-un get invited by the Chinese government to visit China. That should be the concrete evidence about the restoration of traditional partnership between the two countries. But so far, the Chinese government has been sending mixed messages to North Korea, some angry messages, about reconciliatory messages, for the right reasons, because North Korea has not been really, charming neighboring, countries to Chinese government so far. But at the same time, its strategic value cannot be discounted by China.
So it's already been a decade since the North conducted its first nuclear test, and we can't deny that the state has made rapid advancements in terms of nuclear technology.
Right. So that's the question that we have to painfully but candidly admit and to review so far all the range of the North Korea policies intended to defuse the nuclear crisis for the past 10 years. We have to be extremely candid and self-critical because 10 years, that's a long period of time. And nobody can deny that North Korea's WMD capability has not been diminished, but strengthened. So where do we need to begin again, or what went wrong? We have to face those painful but important questions candidly without being tied to political factionalism or ideological dogmas.
So October 9th is the 10th anniversary of Pyongyang's first nuclear test, and the 10th is the Workers' Party Foundation Day. There are now projections of another possible nuclear test happening around this time.
I think so. We have to remind the speech delivered by the foreign minister of North Korea at the UN General Assembly. He emphasized that the nuclear test was conducted as a response to the military activities, USA's military activities in the Korean Peninsula. But look at if we quote his expression, well, the USA does not change their military activities in the Korean Peninsula. It must be one of the good excuses for the North Korean government to continue their provocations in the Korean Peninsula. And in the middle of the economic sanctions against North Korea, definitely on the part of the North Korean regime, they want to show their power and capacity not only to the North Korean people but also to the global community. What kind of ways they have at the moment, that is the conducting nuclear tests or launching long-range missiles. And particularly the last September 20th, North Korean officials mentioned about possibility of launching a long-range nuclear missile tests. Missiles. So definitely, I think considering all of those kind of things, definitely there must be high possibility of those kind of provocations. In the near future.
What makes the Party Foundation Day an attractive date for yet another nuclear test, if it does happen?
Well, I'm not sure whether North Korean regime will conduct a nuclear test, but it might be more likely to choose to do the missile test because every time you conduct nuclear explosion, you waste precious material that could have produced one more nuclear warhead. But missile test, every time you conduct missile test, you learn something very important to improve the missile technology. So I would bet, not my house, but I would bet that missile test to celebrate the National Foundation Day is more likely than North Korea conducting another nuclear test.
Well, there are experts predicting both to take place.
Both take place, right.
One after the other.
The one variable that I pay attention to is that Kim Jong-un government, had the Party Congress, the 7th Party Congress. That was the first time in the past 36 years. So celebrating the Party Foundation this time has become more important to be met with the right scale of events. So maybe
Plus, he's got that new title. with
new
the party,
title,
so,
right? So there should be some additional, event that would uplift the glory of the republic.
Well, within the political circles here in the South, there's still a deep divide between ruling and opposition lawmakers over how to approach the issue of North Korea. What do you think is the right approach? Or is there a right approach?
Regretfully, they are divided in dealing with this issue, definitely. The ruling party, the Saenuri party, emphasized the needs of deployment of the THAAD on the Korean Peninsula, and even the Saenuri party politician, they empathize the redeployment of the strategic nuclear weapons on the Korean Peninsula, something like that. So which means that they just try to put more priorities on the less peaceful way to solve this problem. How about the idea which the opposition party politicians have? They empathize so-called peaceful way, such as six-party talks, to find a solution to this issue. So there must be big differences. If you ask me my personal opinion, I think that this is time for us to show our capacity. Of course, we don't have to cut off the dialogue with North Korea, but they must change first. I think the logic used by the government and the president is quite persuasible.
Well, it's time for us to wrap up. Your final thoughts of the week?
Well, I think definitely the North Korean issue seems to be very important for the future of the Korean economy. So, as I explained just before, the politicians are divided to two in dealing with this issue. But for the future of the Korean economy and Korean politics, I think they should be united. And then without having clear stance about this issue by ourselves, I think this issue will never ever be solved. So we have to make it clear what our stance is, regardless of the political parties they are belonging to.
So hoping for a more united front against North Korea. Dr. Bo?
Since we have discussed Chinese people celebrating National Foundation Day of theirs, why don't we talk about our own National Foundation Day, which happened to be 3rd of October.
This past Monday.
The past Monday, literally meaning the day when heaven opened up for Korean people. And you know the Dangun mythology that the Son of Heaven marrying the she-bear who became a beautiful woman after having prayed in dark cave for 100 days. So persistence and patience represented by the bear has been the spirit of Korean people and their nation. And of course, holiday seasons are season for shopping and celebration, enjoyment, but at the same time, it is time for you to count your blessings and think about your neighbors who are under more difficult circumstances. So, and persistence and patience will give these people hope for a better future. Just hold on to it and there will be a better future.
Well, thank you two very much for sharing your thoughts with us today.
Pleasure.
That is all for this edition of News Inside. Thanks for watching. We'll be back with more next week.